Hi, welcome. This is Victoria McMahon, and I'm an advocate with the Language of Consciousness Institute, coming to you today to be with you around what language is for us. And I invited my good friend, Lori Candon, to have a conversation about what language is and how language lives in our daily lives. Do we pay attention to how language shapes our conversations, our way of being, a general way of how we are connected to ourselves? And I'm thinking about language in terms of, usually we talk about language in the words that we use when we're talking with others. And I want to broaden it out a little bit and talk about language in the way that we know our body. When we hear people talk about body language and how that gives us cues to emotion or mood. That's true. And there's body language in the way that we're in relationship to our body. So there's the body, the language of the body, and how it communicates within us and to others in the world, and how our body orients to the natural world around us. And then there's the story of our emotions, our moods, and how we're in relationship to our emotions. And our thoughts may be connected to our emotions, or we may feel disconnected from them, or not even realize that there's a relationship. So we're just here to explore for a little bit about how language lives in our daily experience. So it kind of opened it up a little bit, Lori, to introduce the ideas. Anything kind of hold and shape your experience, your thinking about what language is for you?
Yeah, welcome. Yes, languaging has been a playground that I've been involved in my entire life. And as a youngster, the language was more in and throughout my body, really connecting deeply with nature and the imagination of what is possible within languaging. And as I got older, I could feel the shift of how I was with languaging and emotional languaging. And then, fast forward to now, I'm finding when there's an integration or a relational way of being with all three of those, the body languaging, the emotional languaging, and just the words and the thinking of languaging, how it's so much easier to navigate the world in and from a life generating place of being, rather than trying to survive or navigate the craziness of the world. And throughout like my observing, it creates, or well, what I have learned is that languaging has created shaping in my body. So I love that you brought up, how does it shape? And that shaping in my body is really relational to how I walk upon the earth, how I am seen. Am I visible? Am I connecting? Am I with another in the field, if you will? And recognizing that all of those work together, and there's not one that's better than the other. They're all have their intelligence within them. And when we can broaden and deepen and widen our relationship to language through others' perspective or your own experience, like that creates much more depth of being in relationship out with others in the world.
Wow. I have so many threads that I could bring forward in what you just languaged. And it's so interesting that in this moment I'm like, what do I choose? And I'm feeling the connection to the language of words. What do I choose here? What thread do I pull? And it reminded me of a conversation that we were in recently about this notion of tensegrity in relationship to languaging, that we kind of, like, if I create tension in one way by observing my thinking, I create some tension, which I'm going to say is a good thing. I'm going to talk about it as, if I consciously pay attention and observe my thinking, I'm creating a tension on thought that informs my body in how it responds, how it creates its language, its story in relationship to that thought. And then if I go at it, like you said, including them all, if I at another moment observe my mood, and I kind of pull my consciousness into my mood more deeply, broader, deeper, wider, as you said, then my thinking may become more interesting, clearer, muckier, who knows, what rises in the observing. And I could do the same if I move my body and feel the shape of my body as it changes, more flexible, more rigid. If I'm observing, if I'm walking in nature, if I'm doing my yoga practice or Tai Chi movements, I can observe myself in any particular way that the language emerges. And I get that tensegrity of, if I use one tension point, it also has a relationship to the other points. And I can observe any aspect, or I can observe the whole system response of myself. And I can get really intrigued by it. So that's where it was the choosing. All the threads are so intriguing. And I'm like, so if I'm feeling my whole system right now, just like bubbling up with the curiosity of, all right, all these possible threads you presented, and I'm just in the experience of the expansion of it, rather than getting caught in one. I'm just feeling the fullness of it in this moment. What's rising for you from it?
Well, I love that you brought up the tensegrity, because for me, that is like operationally how we move through the world in some degree. And while we may need a little bit more attention to move us forward, some of us have that way of beingness in them. They need a little bit stronger of a nudge, and others need less of that. So finding whatever that pull is, wherever it's coming from, in which center of the languaging, it creates a new balance from that point. And I'm a balance fanatic. So I am constantly in the relationship of, how do my words and my thinking language influence my body's language influences my emotional language. And for me, like being in all three of those, I spent the majority, like I said, like I shared earlier, I started as a youngster in my body. And as I, got older, teens, 20s, 30s, I was in my mind, disconnected from my body. So I didn't even really have language to my body. I'm like, are you there? Or, like, I'm still alive. And it's, so in that regard, I had language, but I really couldn't tell you if I was what my body was saying to me.
Well,
I always analyzed it.
so I'm wondering, I heard the words of I wasn't in my body, but what I'm curious is there was no tension being pulled on the body. It was all through the mind. So you didn't have the relationship, the attention to the body, but maybe it was always there wanting to communicate, and the mind was so pulled that it overrode the communication that was wanting to have a place.
Yes. And with that, the story around that relationship or lack of relationship. And for me, it came out as pain. So when I had pain, I knew my body was talking to me, but I didn't have the tools necessarily to listen deeply enough, if you will. And then I met you with yoga, and I do my own movement with Tai Chi, and we move together. And with other communities in which I've practiced, I got reintroduced to my body's language. And I noticed how, wow, okay, inviting that along for the party, and then how the emotional language shifted, the mental languaging shifted, and there was more of that tensegrous balance, if you will, if that is even a word,
I like
instead of
it.
that pull, because life, I mean, like I love balance, so I'm always feeling like I'm in the pull of finding that balance, whether in whatever aspect of my being. And
So
wow,
can I pull that thread a little bit?
yeah,
Because I think what's often said in our culture is that we need to have balance in our lives, right? And what I connected to in what you said, and what I believe, you tell me if it's accurate, is that it is about the tensegrous movement that we're in between the mind, the emotion, the body intelligence, all interacting relationally, and that it's not a static point that we find ourselves in, but it's the ability to be in the flow of the pulls in different aspects of our experience, and that it's really about finding how do we how do we operate within the tensegrity movements of the different parts of us, rather than keep seeking, looking for this point of reference, that we're always in this one point. And I think for me, that's not balance, because balance is dynamic. And that's what I heard in you, but I just wanted to check that out.
100%. And I don't know if you could hear this or not, but somebody just rang my doorbell, and my dogs just went crazy. And then my cat went like jumping over furniture and stuff in my office where he shouldn't be. So, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, where's the balance in that? And it is dynamic. We think that we need to hold balance as a still point. And no, it life is dynamic, balance is dynamic, movement is still within the movement, movement within the stillness. I mean, we are always constantly moving toward, away, with, against, we're totally in movement 24/7. And finding our relationship of being in the play, in the life enhancing, life generating, life languaging of our body, emotion, and mental thoughts can create such an awesome playground to observe, instead of allowing the observing to be like a laboratory and it's experimental, type of thing. It's like, no, let's go have fun and notice what's going on and move in a fully integrated tensegrous way. I love it. I have a new word.
So tensegrity is our access for being in relationship to ourselves more deeply.
Mhm.
If we give attention, I just popped in, I remember this old saying, where attention goes, energy flows, right? And I'm thinking about it. Well, if I give my attention purposefully to the body in a moment, does the energy flow from the body through the emotion, through the thought? Is it all integrous? Do I have all of those aspects of me in my attention in that moment? So I can feel what's the pull of my mental thinking in this moment of the body pulling. And I'm kind of curious in the last few minutes that we're in this conversation, can we give some kind of, for lack of a better word, pragmatic example of what we're talking about? Is there like a memory, or is there like an imagined possibility of how someone could like go out and play with what you were just saying? What would be like one just little way of practicing that we might leave somebody, go try this? Is anything pop in for you?
Yes, and I will start with the body.
Okay.
And how, like, I invite you to look in a mirror, join a friend or someone and try on different shapes of your body, whether it's a collapse, whether it's a, like a fierce, angst, if you will. And notice when you try on those different shapings in your own body, what does it produce? What mood is produced? What emotion is produced? What languaging follows suit? We all have, I'm pretty sure, well, I'm going to speak generally, but I'm pretty sure we all have felt that experience of in the grocery line or out in the world where somebody is just like invading your space and they're a little bit too close. Try that on, like, find that in your own body. Notice what that signals in yourself and be curious about it and shift and find the place where it feels most relaxing, most effortless, most efficient, most just yummy.
And I love it. You know how people use the language shift happens?
Yeah.
That popped into my word language. Shift happens.
Yeah.
Can you give attention to how you shift in different situations? And my closing thought kind of with this is, the idea is we have a full playground upon us. We just finished up our Thanksgiving connections with ourselves, with people. We're moving in towards the Christmas holiday. And this is the time of year where shift happens. Everything is up for grabs, right? And we all know that we have different moods and responses to how we are through this seasonal time. And so you have a veritable playground to try on body shapes in different circumstances and see how does pulling on the body, the tensegrity of the body, have relationship to the words that come into your mind or out of your mouth, expectedly or unexpectedly, right? And how it shapes your mood. And then if you find yourself in a very particular mood that you don't want to feel stuck in, if you're feeling stuck, how do you like give attention to your mood and pull on that a little bit deeper and see what the body is in relationship to that mood, and what your language is about a mood. You know, maybe the mood you're in is fine. Maybe you want to stay in that mood and explore it, giving yourself permission to have access to the fullness of whatever is upon you. Just giving all those parts of you a place, your body language, your emotional language, your mental language, everything gets a place. And for me, that's very dear to my heart, that every aspect of us has a place. Any last thoughts?
No, I agree. Ditto. And just have fun. Have
Yeah.
fun and, be gentle with yourself as you explore.
And do you know what? We invite you to post your playground experience on Facebook. Underneath we'll post our, make sure that our conversation is there for you, and just tag us. Hey, here's what my experience was. I'd love to hear from you.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. All right. Until next time. Be well.
Bye.
Bye.